Hello, dear aspirants. Welcome to Goldfinch IAS and KS Institutes. As usual, we have came up with one more important discussion today, that is economics news daily, and we are doing the fourth session in this week. And I have covered some of the important topics today from the Hindu. The first one that we are going to discuss is concerning the development for India is the European Union's carbon border. See, this overall issue is actually about the carbon control initiative of the European Union has been taken, particularly on the commodities which are imported from non-European countries. See, listen carefully. The development for India is the European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism. European Union, that is a group of countries, have made carbon border adjustment mechanism. Under this mechanism, there is a carbon tax is been imposed on the import of India. The export of India. India is exporting to European Union, no? So European Union is imposing the carbon tax. For that they are saying we have made some clause. That clause is called carbon border adjustment mechanism. Under this mechanism, the European Union is going to impose the carbon taxes on the import, non-European countries' imports. It may be India, it may be China, it may be some other countries, but it is actually more affecting India and China, which are the main exporters of commodities to European Unions, right? The Commerce and Industry Minister very clearly said that the proposed carbon tax on imports is an ill-conceived move that would become the death knell for India's manufacturing. What do you mean by that? It is going to affect the Indian manufacturing sector. Getting the point? Because if you impose more carbon taxes, see, the overall intention of this European Union is, under this particular mechanism, they are saying you have to give us more organic products, which means less carbon products. Because European Union already adopted in their own industry. Their own industries are not able to compete with Indian commodities because Indian commodities are non-carbon commodities. And they have Indian commodities are carbon commodities and they have non-carbon commodities. Their companies are made compulsory to produce non-carbon commodities in European Union, but they are importing carbon commodities from India. So that is the reason the companies in European Union are struggling actually to cope up with the competition of the Indian and Chinese commodities. That is the reason this mechanism has been introduced. I hope you understood, right? The European Union intends to achieve the target of 55%. You may get a question, sir, why European Union is doing this? They are doing it because they have a target of reducing the greenhouse gases and emissions. That is by 55% reduction in the greenhouse gases emissions by 2030. This is the target. To achieve this target, they are imposing carbon tax on the import of non-European commodities. Getting the point? The commodities going from India, the commodities going from China are being taxed carbon tax by the European Union because of this particular agenda they have in mind, that is to decrease the carbon emissions, that is the greenhouse gases, by 55% by 2030. To achieve this, they are doing this. Understood? So compared to the 1990s level under the European Green Deal, the European Green Deal is a convention that European countries have made actually, right? The European Union argues that the higher standard of environment, that is higher standard of environmental compliances in its domestic industries will reduce their competitiveness. This is what I told you. So what is happening? The European Union already made mandatory for the European Union countries, companies and industries to stick on to the that 55% reduction norms, which means the companies which are producing the commodities in European Union, they have to emit very less carbon dioxide. They have to emit less greenhouse gases. That commitment is there. To compromise with that commitment, if, see, for example, European Union is doing all these measures, they are trying to control, or they are trying to reduce, the companies are trying to reduce the greenhouse emissions. They are using new technology, which is expensive technology. Using such an expensive technology, they cannot sell the commodities for a cheaper rate. But Indian and Chinese commodities, which are very cheaper, they are being sold in the European Union. That is affecting the European Union companies and industries. That is the reason it has been mentioned like this. You understood? So it will reduce their competitiveness. Thus, it intends to impose an import duty on carbon intensive industries from non-European countries to meet both these objectives. This is the main idea because of this particular event is in news. You got it? Global Trade Research Initiative report says in 2022, 27% of India's exports of iron, steel, and aluminium products worth 8.2 billion went to the European Union only. Now, all these will be under a problem. You got it? Because we have to make them carbon free. We have to make them carbon free. That is a very difficult thing to be achieved, right? And what India can do now, because there is no other option, because we cannot suddenly go and adopt such a new technology. That is a more expensive technology to adopt, right? So that is to decrease the carbon emissions and producing the steel and producing the iron and producing the aluminum without emitting more carbon is very difficult, right? Now what are the India having options now? India got actually two options now. One is, the first would be to challenge the practice, because this is a practice done by European Union which is going against the principle which we have signed in the Paris Agreement. Listen carefully. What we signed in the Paris Agreement? That is being violative of the common but differentiated responsibilities principle agreed upon under the Paris Agreement. Listen carefully. What do you mean by common but differentiated responsibilities? Differentiated responsibility meaning, see, clause is common. In the Paris Agreement also it has been declared, clause is common. That is to decrease the greenhouse gases. Differentiated responsibility meaning the developed countries' responsibilities are different and developing countries' responsibilities are different. The developed countries will adopt some of the very important measures to decrease the carbon dioxide, whereas the developing countries, there is no binding agreement to decrease the carbon emissions. They will do it in a voluntary basis. That is what is a common but differentiated responsibility. The responsibility to reduce the greenhouse gases are different between the developed countries and developing nations. So developed countries supposed to help the developing nations to reduce the carbon dioxide. That is a responsibility they have. But instead of that, they are going against this. This India can question. Correct? So this is the one option India got, right? Which India has already challenged it. Okay. So the second is, the European Union could collect the tax and return the funds to such countries to invest in their green technologies. This is very, very important. See, second option is, let the European Union collect the tax, that is carbon tax, and that amount should be given to developing countries where the emission is not being controlled. You give to developing countries, let the developing countries adopt some green technologies in their own countries. That will also reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, no, if that is the main objective of the European Union. And next, we will go on to the second topic for the day to discuss, that is exploring India's diverse cultural heritage through GI tag. GI tag meaning geographical indication tag. See, I have this issue, I came across this particular issue, but I thought of dealing this, why it is in news, and dealing this in a different way, that is through an MCQ. Okay, first of all, that is Dongriya Khond shawl from Odisha. Dongriya is a tribal community in the Odisha region, and they have a waving of the shawl, which is a traditional historic shawl they make actually, and it has been declared as a GI tag. It has been declared under the geographical indication tag, right? And this is one, and one more is Sundarban honey from the West Bengal. This has also been declared. Like that, many commodities were declared under the GI tag. Keeping this in mind, I have some questions to discuss, right? First of all, in India, if one thinks of Tirupati, what comes to our mind? If you think of Tirupati, laddu comes in mind. So that laddu is actually under the GI tag, geographical indication tag. And what comes to Nagpur? If you think about Nagpur, so you definitely think about the oranges, correct? If I say Mysore, what comes? Mysore Mallige, that is the jasmine flower. You getting the point? So these are all very, very important. So let us deal this with the question. So this is what is Dogriya shawls, which are being waved by the tribals of Dogriya. And please go through this particular question. Just stop this video here and please go through this particular question and try to answer. And please give me that answer in the comment section. Let me discuss this particular question now. See, it says consider the following statements. The first statement says to declare all products under the GI tag, the raw materials for such products should have to be come from that particular region. See, for example, if I am making Tirupati Ladu, all the ingredients, whatever to prepare Tirupati Ladu should come from that particular place only. If I am preparing Kanjivaram sari, whatever the Malbari silk is required, that is coming from the Kanjivaram region only. That is what the first statement says. If it is right, you can say right. If it is wrong, you can say wrong. But options are given here. Second is chemicals cannot be considered under the GI tag. Is chemicals can also be declared as a under GI tag. Chemicals, paints, etc. Okay. Next, Uttar Pradesh has the highest number of GI tags compared to other states. Is it true? If it is not, just think about it. See how many of these statements given above are correct. Statement says only one statement among the three is correct. Option B says only two, any two of the statements are correct. Option C says all the three statements are correct. And option D says none of them are correct. What is your answer? I hope all of you given the answer. See, the right answer for this question is none of them are correct. Why none of them are correct? None of them are correct because to declare all products under the GI tag, the raw material, it is not mandatory like that. It is not mandatory. The raw material should come from that particular place only. What is that? Malbari silk. That is actually coming from where? That is coming from Karnataka. But it is been waived in Kanjivaram. Correct? So this statement absolutely goes wrong. Second statement, chemicals cannot be considered under the GI tag. See, there are still 34 commodities need to be declared from chemicals, paints, food products and agriculture products. Right? See, with respect to the first product, listen carefully. The declare all products under the GI tag, the raw material such products should have to be coming from the same area. This is not applicable for artifact, industrial products and for those things. It can be applicable for agriculture. Think about it. If it is an agriculture, if it is a non-agriculture one, it can come from anywhere. Correct? If it is agriculture product, it should be from that particular place. For example, basmati rice, that should be from that particular place. It is not from other places. And third statement says Uttar Pradesh. It is not Uttar Pradesh. It is the Tamil Nadu which got 61 geographical indication tags. So all of their explanations are actually very clearly given below. It is important to note that the raw materials for such products do not have to come from that region. It is not mandatory to come from that particular region only. Raw material can come from anywhere, but the product should be prepared in that particular region. If it is not a agricultural tag. For agricultural tag, the geographical indication will be from that particular place only. You got it? For instance, the leaf that gives the Banarasi pan, its diversify, its identity is not grown in Varanasi. It has actually come from Bihar and West Bengal, but it is famous in Varanasi. Yes or no? That is the Malbari silk. As I mentioned earlier, the Malbari silk used in Kanchipuram saris comes from where? Karnataka. But that has been manufactured where? Waved where? It is in Tamil Nadu, that is Kanchipuram. Right? So there are 34 classes of products that can get GI tags, from chemicals to paint to foodstuffs, handicrafts, musical instruments and even firearms and locomotives. In all these areas can also be a product be declared under the geographical indication tag. I hope you understood so far whatever I have discussed. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. See you in the next video. Bye bye.